Virginia Hall, the Limping Lady. In 1941, Lieutenant Virginia Hall was an American agent working in France when she was ordered to leave by Vichy officials. However, before leaving, she decided to destroy all of the files that she had gathered during her time in the country. But she was caught red-handed while doing so and arrested by the French police. After being interrogated for hours, she was given two options: either leave France or go to prison for 5 years. She chose to leave, and with that began one of the most successful careers in espionage during the Second World War. Hall's limp, caused by an old war injury, made her the perfect operative, as people did unpay much attention to her, assuming that she was harmless. Once back in Britain, she was recruited by the Special Operations Executive, or SOE, and underwent training at their school in Oxford. Her first mission was to gather intelligence on the Germans in France and Belgium. However, this went awry as she was captured by the Gestapo within 3 weeks. And it seemed that her career in intelligence was over before it even started. But she managed to escape with the help of a sympathetic German officer who helped her get to Spain. From there, she made her way back to Britain, where she was reunited with her family and given another chance at a desk job. But Hall was bored with office work and yearned for something more exciting. Soon enough, she got her wish, as she was sent back to France as part of a team that was to assist the resistance. As soon as she arrived, she got to work and began to recruit new members into the resistance by visiting cafes, pubs, and cinemas and getting to know people. She paid special attention to those men who visited brothels, as they were known to be less than savory characters and therefore more likely to agree to dangerous missions. At this point, Hall was still technically employed by but she was operating in such a high-risk environment that it was unlikely that she would survive the war. As such, she resigned from the SOE and became a member of the French resistance instead. Here, she earned the code name La Lorde, or the Limping Lady, due to her obvious limp. This caused the Germans to assume that she was just a lowly courier and therefore never suspected that she was actually a trained agent. She operated in the Verneuil region of France and worked closely with other Allied agents such as the Polish woman Krystyna Skarbek, who we covered in our previous video. Together, they planned sabotage missions across France and also tried to smuggle down Allied airmen into Spain. However, after Skarbek was betrayed and captured by the Gestapo, she was forced to flee Verneuil and make her way to London. Once there, she contacted her friend, Major Ralph Honeycutt, who ran the Special Operations Executive's F section. He was impressed by her bravery and resourcefulness and asked if she would be interested in working for the SO instead of the French resistance.
She agreed and became one of only a handful of people who spied for both organizations during the war.
But it wasn't long before Hall found herself back in France, this time under the employ of the SO. Her new mission was to gather intelligence on the Germans and report it back to London. She was also tasked with organizing resistance groups and training them in sabotage tactics. One of her first missions was to help smuggle a downed RAF pilot out of France and back to Britain. This was a risky undertaking, as if the Germans had caught him, he would have been executed. But Hall and her team managed to pull it off without a hitch. As the war went on, she carried out more and more dangerous missions, and each time she managed to elude the Germans. Her bravery and daring do impressed her superiors at the SO, who promoted her to the rank of lieutenant. She was also awarded the Distinguished Service Cross for her work with the French resistance. But not everyone was happy with Hall's methods. Some members of the British government felt that she was too reckless and putting herself in unnecessary danger. They argued that the SO should focus on gathering intelligence rather than taking risks. However, Hall's supporters, including many of her fellow operatives, argued that she was highly skilled and that her bravery had saved countless lives. Ultimately, it was decided that she would be allowed to continue working for the SO. In late 1944, Hall was sent to Brussels in Belgium, which was then occupied by Germany. Her orders were to organize and lead resistance groups in the city and carry out sabotage missions against the occupying forces. Hall wasted no time in getting to work. She set up a network of safe houses where resistance fighters could meet and plan their missions. She also recruited new members into the resistance and trained them in sabotage tactics. One of her first missions was to help smuggle Allied soldiers out of Belgium and into neutral Switzerland. This was a dangerous undertaking, as the soldiers had to pass through enemy lines, but Hall and her team managed to pull it off without a hitch. Another mission was to disrupt German communications and transport. The resistance fighters would cut telephone lines, blow up bridges, and derail trains. These missions caused major headaches for the German occupiers, but also put the resistance fighters at great risk. In early 1945, the Germans launched a massive crackdown on the resistance in Belgium. This was in response to the growing threat posed by the Allied armies. Many resistance fighters were captured and executed, but Hall and her team managed to evade the Germans. In March 1945, the Germans began their final withdrawal from Belgium. They were forced to abandon their positions and flee as the Allied armies advanced. Hall and her team took advantage of the situation and carried out a number of daring missions to disrupt the German retreat. For example, they blew up railway bridges, cut telephone lines, and ambushed German troops. These missions were extremely dangerous, but also highly effective. The Germans were forced to abandon large amounts of supplies and equipment as they fled. In addition, the resistance fighters also provided valuable intelligence to the Allied armies. For example, they informed the Allies about the strength and location of German forces. This intelligence was used to great effect by the Allied commanders. By the end of the war, Hall and her team had played a major role in the liberation of Belgium. Their actions had disrupted the German war effort and helped to save countless lives. Hall's bravery and leadership had been instrumental in this success. She had put herself in great danger on countless occasions to help others. After the war ended, Hall returned to the United States. She had been a hero of the war, but she was now suffering from severe health problems. She had been wounded several times during the war, and had also been tortured by the Germans. She died in 1982, but her legacy lives on. She is remembered as one of the bravest and most effective spies of the Second World War. Now, if you're wondering how she made her contacts in France, well, the truth is that she didn't really have any particular system for making contacts. Rather, her recruitment methods were pretty unsystematic, and she often relied on chance encounters to meet new people. For example, she frequented places like cafes, pubs, and cinemas where she would strike up conversations with strangers. She was particularly drawn to men who frequented brothels, as she believed that they were less than savory characters and more likely to agree to dangerous missions. Of course, this was not a foolproof method, and she was eventually captured by the Gestapo. However, when she was interrogated, she was able to convince them that she was just a lowly courier and nothing more. Once she was released, she made her way back to Britain, where she was recruited by the SO. It was here that she received proper training in espionage and sabotage. The organization gave her a new identity and a new mission, and she was soon on her way back to France. It was here that she really made her mark. She was involved in a number of daring missions, such as helping downed RAF pilots escape from the country. She also worked closely with the French resistance, training members in sabotage tactics and helping them carry out acts of defiance against the occupying forces. So there you have it. A look at the fascinating life and career of Virginia Hall, one of the bravest spies of the Second World War. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe and leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.